one's going to be a little weird to talk about. It's not because it's a bad movie, far from it as a matter of fact, but also because it's a solo movie introducing a new character, and it's the last movie of the second phase of the MCU that's following up Avengers Age of Ultron. Yeah, it kind of was dealt a pretty bad hand right off the bat, but thankfully, our skepticism was proven wrong rather quickly. And Ant-Man went on to become not only a mainstay of the MCU, but also one of the most surprising and one of the absolute funniest movies in the entire MCU. Ant-Man is a great film. Like, there's no doubt about it. It has issues, which we'll talk about, but overall, this movie's yet another great one, and it's a pretty strong ending to Phase 2, despite being completely different from Age of Ultron, in both tone, cinematography, and overall style. This one goes back to the more goofy, lighthearted fare similar to Guardians of the Galaxy, so we have a good bit to talk about with this one, so without further ado, let's dive in. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Image Station, for everything animation, including Marvel heroes assembling for the fate of the world, as well as TV and movies. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome back to Marvelous May. Welcome to Ant-Man, the final movie of the second phase of the MCU, and one of the funniest movies in the entire MCU. Seriously, sometimes I even forget that this movie is even a superhero film, because there's so much good comedy. Like, this movie is hilarious, and I mean that as a positive. I don't mean it as in, oh, well, this is a movie you're going to end up laughing at and not being able to take seriously. No, as in, it's a great comedy that also just happens to be a superhero film. Now, before this, Ant-Man wasn't really that popular in the comics. He was present, yes, and he was there in some way, but Ant-Man himself as a character was on the lower tiers of Marvel hero characters. However, after seeing how the Guardians rose to popularity thanks to their movie, Ant-Man thankfully went through the same thing. Not to mention, this is the movie that made Paul Rudd into an A-list actor. This was the movie that has arguably made his career. And I mean that as a positive, because this dude's super talented and incredibly funny. Speaking of incredibly funny, this is also the breakout role of Michael Pena. And he is one of the funniest characters in the entire MCU. Whenever this guy's on screen, you will laugh your ass off. He is so great with his comedic timing, with his actual well-written jokes, and just how snappy it all is. Like, this returns to those quirky, lighthearted, goofy humor of the first phase of the MCU. And to an extent, Guardians of the Galaxy, even though I think Guardians is funnier. But this is still one of the most absolutely hilarious films in the entire MCU, and I promise you I mean that as a compliment. So, we have a good bit to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive into Ant-Man. Here's my written review. I hope you enjoy. This is a bit of an odd one to talk about, mainly because it's both the final film of Phase 2 of the MCU and the immediate follow-up to Avengers 2, which disappointed at the box office when it first came out for whatever stupid unknown reason. Not to mention that a lot like Iron Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man isn't very popular in the actual source material. So all around, this just seemed like a very bizarre choice to have as the conclusion of another phase in the MCU. Like, the first phase ended with the big crossover Avengers, and made sense for it to be the end of that first phase. Ant-Man is a goofy side story that barely has any connection to what happened in Age of Ultron. Yeah, it's a weird thing that Marvel is going to end up repeating. But we'll get there when we get there. However, thankfully, we were all proven wrong for being skeptical, because not only is Ant-Man a pretty strong conclusion to Phase 2 of the MCU, despite having little to no connection with Age of Ultron, but it's also one of the absolute funniest films in the entire MCU. I kid you not. You will laugh your ass off when you watch this movie. Like, think Blue Beetle before Blue Beetle. That's the kind of quirky, hilarious comedy you get in this movie. Paul Rudd is fantastic as Ant-Man. Like, he is fantastic as this character who used to be a thief, but then is hired back to be a thief and ends up becoming an unwitting superhero. And he acts the exact way you expect him to act when he's been given superpowers. The action is very creative. This is one of those movies where it makes everyday objects turn into giant hazards. Like, it's one of those movies where it shrinks the characters down to, like, the size of a pen, and the entire world around them goes from something usual and mundane to suddenly terrifying and genuinely dangerous. Like, literally the first time we see him use this suit and what it can do, he goes down a shower drain. Well, he almost goes down a shower drain, but then he has to climb out of the tub, somehow sneak his way out of the house, while all these things that weren't threats when he was his normal size are now death to him. And it's always weird how they keep making these things happen. It's pretty freaking interesting, and they always get super creative with it. The tone is refreshingly lighthearted and fun, which is refreshing especially after how dark the past few MCU movies, especially in this phase, have been. The humor is amazing and had me laughing multiple times. This is one of the funniest movies in the MCU. I'm gonna keep saying it. It's one of the funniest movies in the MCU. The characters are superb, every single one of them. Whether you're talking about Ant-Man, or Hank Pym, or the woman that eventually becomes Wasp, like, or even just the goofy side character played by Michael Pena. What was his name again? Luis. Yeah, Luis. Luis is the best part of the movie, and he provides the best laughs in the movie. But everyone is funny to some kind of extent. Like, literally, one of the lines from the trailers is, "I'm done breaking in and stealing stuff." Hank Pym's response, I want you to break in and steal some stuff." Like, it is borderline self-aware. The characters, superb, writing is smart and borderline self-aware, the pacing is fast. This is one of the more quickly paced movies in the MCU. The runtime is great, the rewatchability is high, mainly because, again, I said it's super freaking funny, and the final battle on a Thomas the Tank Engine set is hilarious. And a cool little fun fact that was shared to me by my friend Paul Bell is that Hits Entertainment and Mattel actually gave Marvel and Disney the green light to use Thomas in that final battle, as long as he remained neutral. And apparently Marvel, this is also a cool little Easter egg I discovered, Marvel actually published the first 304 issues of the Thomas the Tank Engine comics from 1987 to 1999, so it's kind of like a goofy but really cool full circle moment. And not to mention the battle itself is both epic and absolutely hilarious. Unfortunately, though, and I hate to be negative, but this has to be said, this one has the unfortunality of falling back into the MCU's constant villain problem, as Yellow Jacket sucks big time. He's literally just yet another asshole in a suit. Just following the old Iron Man cliche. Now, the actor does alright. He's not horrible, and he's not terrible either. He's fine. And the suit design is cool. It matches well with Ant-Man's suit. But he has pretty much no character and is as one-dimensional as it gets. He is as one-dimensional, flat, and generic as you can possibly get for a movie villain like this. He's not as bad as Aldrich Killian or Malekith, but he's still by far the weakest part of the movie. And it only gets worse when you find out what they did to him later. Because, spoiler alert, he ends up coming back way later in the MCU, in one of the most baffling, stupid decisions I've ever seen in any MCU movie ever. And since I'm re-reviewing that one, that's not going to be fun to talk about. Overall, though, this pint-sized hero still packs a punch. Ant-Man is a blast, and just like both Iron Man and Guardians before him, brought the character back into relevance again. This is the one that made Ant-Man into a popular mainstay in both comics and the MCU. All because this movie was as successful as it was. Like, after the disappointment box office-wise with Age of Ultron, Disney and Marvel needed another win to make sure that their MCU didn't go off the rails. Yet. And thankfully, Ant-Man actually turned out to be that, as it was highly praised, it did really well in the box office, and still sits at pretty high ratings and scores even today. And I wouldn't expect anything less. I really enjoy this one. Yes, it's simple. Yes, it's goofy. Yes, it has little to no connection with Age of Ultron. And yes, it is a very bizarre choice to have this as the final movie of the second phase of the MCU. But, overall, it's just plain fun. Like, this is what these movies are supposed to be. They're supposed to be fun, goofy, and entertaining. Like, dark stuff is good, but you gotta have some levity. And this is that levity. Because right after this came, well, Civil War. But we'll talk about that next time. So, this is gonna bring me down now to the final verdict for Ant-Man. And I debated with myself a little bit because I was bouncing between like an 8 and a 9. Because it has enough qualities to be a 9, but it also has enough problems to be an 8. And after doing some debating with myself, after rewatching it, I decided that Ant-Man deserves a final verdict of a strong but flawed 8.5 out of 10. Yes, I went right in the middle. This is a great MCU movie. It's one of the funniest MCU movies. And even if you're someone that doesn't like comic book movies, this still works as a goofy, fun comedy. If you love comedies, you'll love this movie. If you love comedies and superheroes, you'll love this movie. And if you are one of those rare niche people that did like Ant-Man in the comics, you'll really like this movie. It did wonders for the MCU, and it continued to solidify the MCU as one of the biggest events in cinema history. It's simple, it's goofy, it's quirky, but it is so entertaining. Even with its flaws, I cannot recommend this one enough. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. And as for the second phase of the MCU overall, well, it's a bit hard to really pin down because this phase of the MCU did have one giant big stinker with Thor the Dark World. But the rest of them have mostly been really good. Like, if we take a look back here, give me just a second. If we take a look back on this phase of the MCU and every score that I gave it, let's see. I gave Iron Man 3 a 7. Thor got a 3 because it's crap. Straight up 12, the first of 5 12s in the MCU with Captain America the Winter Soldier. Another 11 out of 10 for Age of Ultron. And an 8.5 for Ant-Man. And I believe I gave an 8.5 to the first phase of the MCU. Because I had to take into account Iron Man 2 and, some of the other stuff. So, with all that said, I think that Phase 2 of the MCU is an overall improvement, even with that one massive stinker. So, I think that Phase 2 deserves the final verdict, a strong 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 overall. Really enjoy it. Really like it. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Okay, that's it. That's it for Phase 2 of the MCU, and that's it for my review of Ant-Man. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for our start into Phase 3 of the MCU with Captain America Civil War.
Excited for what comes up ahead.